off, and then we will go to the case. Is everyone ready? The first off case is the topicality on one of the following. The A point is the interpretation. One of the following mandates that only one action from the following defined categories can be taken. Additionally, this means public health, economic development, or human rights protection. Also, it indicates that the areas are exclusive from each other in the context of the resolution. The B point of is the violation. The plan increases assistance to more than one of the topic areas. He may claim that it's just human and public health inside the plan text. However, his own cards indicate, especially on the solvency, that this is for economic development as well. That is the rhetoric of his own cards, which means he is increasing assistance to both. The C are the standards. The first is ground. They explode the affirmative ground by providing access to additional advantages from solving more than one area and exclude negative counterplan and disad ground, which are predicated on solvency mechanisms that only operate in one realm or the other. The second is limits. Permitting policies that affect all three categories explode the number of possible cases because there are an infinite number of combinations that could exist between these three countries, making it impossible to develop a stable literature base or prepare any type of argumentation that would actually provide the direct clash. But the third is precision. Our interpretation is the most precise because it is based on a planned action, creating a clear, bright line as to what each topic area is and as to what each assistance level is within those given topic areas. And the plan must specify their area additionally, but also the case must represent that specification of the area in order to eliminate regressive effects topicality debates. I think this is voted for a couple of reasons. The first is that the rules specify that it is a social contract that you will affirm the resolution via the one and following context in the resolution. He is only allowed to do one. But the second is competing interpretations ensure for the best debates, preserving fairness and education. The disad. The A point, uniqueness. African regionalism is high now. The AU's ability to consolidate and unite regional security and humanitarian initiatives has reversed the balkanization of Africa. Africa Studies Quarterly in 2007. The African Union has taken a number of noteworthy steps to harmonize the continent's numerous security initiatives, both the creation of regionally based multinational brigades as part of African Standby Force, as well as the decision to eliminate official cooperation to 7 organizations are meant to prevent needless duplication of effort and to ensure that the continent's limited resources are applied to areas of real need by basing its security architecture on regional pillars and incorporating existing initiatives as building blocks and implementation agencies into its continental policy. The AU has made important steps towards establishing a common front and reversing the balkanization of Africa. B is the link. Selectively choosing individual assistance efforts or programs undermines African regional institutions such as the AU and fractures Pan-Africanism, Colgan in 2004. In terms of general trends in the United States' relations with Africa, selectivity in U.S. programs and initiatives, whether we are talking about development assistance or HIV/AIDS, to unilaterally pick and choose which African countries are worthy to be rewarded with eligibility, thus giving priority and privilege to countries that are considered to be good performers or good allies. In doing so, the United States bypasses and undermines African regional and Pan-African institutions such as the African Union, the SADC, and the CWAS. C. Continued balkanization of Africa risks chaos, threatening the integrity of the entire continent. BO and 02. The melding of diverse communities into the larger human community was the way to peace. These concerns reflect the widespread fear among African governments of balkanization, leading to the disruption of African continental integrity. And finally, African instability risks great power draw and global nuclear war. Dushin 02. A nuclear war is most likely to start in Africa. An African war can attract outside involvement very quickly. An African nuclear strike can ignite a much broader conflagration if other powers are interested in a fight. Thus, in order to avoid the disad, I propose the following counterplan. The African Union will create the marketing programs that Spencer talks about in the 1AC in an effort to provide the same level of condom distribution that the 1AC does. Observation 2 is the competition. Subpoint 8. The counterplan is non-topical. The counterplan tests the word resolved, which means to make a firm decision about, and the word should, which is used to imply obligation or duty. Counterplans test the resolution are a key part of predictable negative ground. Additionally, off the B, the counterplan is mutually exclusive because the 1AC does not include any AU action. Any permutation is an act of severance because it was not initially included inside the 1AC text. But additionally, immediacy of the plan should be rejected. Further, any permutation would be net advantageous to the counterplan alone, specifically because of the disad as well as the solvency arguments. But additionally, the AU can solve Central African organizations key to combating AIDS. The AU solves Owuki and 03. African nations have a unique opportunity to seize the momentum in 2003 in the fight against HIV/AIDS. To seize the momentum, Africa will deal with key strategic issues in the fight against HIV/AIDS in the continent. Additionally, Africa, I have written repeatedly in the past issues that Africa will have is to establish a strong, efficient, and effective central body to manage the epidemic. The central body could be one of the organs of the African Union or a new focused organization that will assist African development, deploying and value its priorities in the fight against HIV/AIDS. On to the case debate. Spencer's first card under the AIDS scenario indicates that PEPFAR is working in there now. However, because they have abstinence programs and not condom-based programs, these organizations don't have the full level of efficacy that they could have. However, there is one key provision provision inside PEPFAR that is going to be damning to Spencer. It indicates that if the United States decides to issue condoms, all PEPFAR funding is cut. That means that post-plan, if the condoms don't solve, there's literally zero mechanism to stop AIDS inside the region because there's no funding for PEPFAR and there's also no efficacy of the condoms. Additionally, this only leads us into the solvency debate further. Ugandan men are hostile to discussions of family planning issues. Nairobi, April 7, 2008. For Ugandan men, the equation is often a simple one. An abundance of children equals affordability and security. This deeply rooted belief has frightening implications. Projections are based on the current fertility rate of 6.7 children per woman. Family planning has traditionally been relegated to women in this country. Men reject almost the same way when you mention anything related to sex. They want to change the topic quickly because it is a private affair. When I tell the man that a strength is not recognized by the many children, but of the quality the man provides them, they start to protest. In this process, I get a chance to tell them about the part of family planning. Additionally, he told the IPS report, a recent workshop on reproductive health, that it was held in Kampala by the Population Reference Bureau, a Washington-based NGO. Matters are further complicated by the culture, placing a higher value on sons than daughters, prompting parents to continue having children until a son, preferably sons, is born. This means that this is going to be extremely difficult for him to solve, even if the condoms are made readily available, that he cannot make a man wear them, which means it is impossible to ever garner the solvency. But additionally, social stigma against condoms prevents their adoption. This is Banui and Darabi in 2003. Inquiry as to the reasons for the resistance to condom use revealed 5 out of 40 respondents cited condom rupture. Well, I wouldn't say condoms are very effective because I think they can fail to protect if they rupture. Thus, there is also an inherent barrier because individuals don't believe that condoms are effective themselves, which means even though we might, they don't. Additionally, USAID only distributes condoms made in the United States. This both reduces the number of condoms provided and also sends a signal that the United States doesn't support their use. This policy is modeled in Uganda to decrease emphasis on condoms. Human Rights Watch in 2004. Throughout the 1990s, the number of condoms shipped abroad by the United States Agency for International Development dropped by a high of approximately 800 million condoms to 1991, just over 200 million in 1999, yet this was a fraction of the amount provided in the early 1990s, despite the fact that the number of people living with HIV/AIDS nearly tipped over that same period. Laws requiring the United States to do condoms purchased from American manufacturers means that the U.S. does not obtain the lowest possible price for condoms. Despite that fact, non-U.S. brands of condoms on the international market meet stringently low quality standards. This perception may discourage programs from including condom provision.
What's the third standard on the top side argument? Precision?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the argument here?
Sure. It's based on a plan action, creating a clear bright line as to what type of assistance they are giving, depending on the specific
What's
area.
a topical act under the 1C interpretation?
It depends on which type of assistance you're talking about. If you were talking about economic development, maybe a GO. If you're talking about human rights protection, something else.
Okay, so like a GO is a topical act.
Right. You must do something that only affects one area.
The argument is that there's a lot of unity amongst African cultures now. Is this the argument?
It has nothing to do with cultures. It's that inside Africa, the AU is working to create regional institutions that have a regional cooperation. This means that inside the area, the AU is doing a good job of including everyone, which the plan doesn't do.
Okay. Okay. The counterclaim.
Yeah.
What's the status?
Conditional.
Conditional. Okay. So the argument is that the AU will do it.
Yep.
Why is the AU better at condom social marketing than the U.S.?
The first part indicates that these organizations are under solvency, that these organizations are better at solving the AIDS crisis because they have the awareness.
I get the AIDS thing,
right.
But where does the card say that the AU is better at condom social marketing programs?
It doesn't.
Okay. Okay. And then, did you read another card on the AU, or just the first one?
Just the first one.
Okay, the activity. Your first argument is that if the United States decides to issue condoms, what happens?
That there's a hostility towards men in the greater Horn of Africa.
The USAID will got their phone.
Oh, right. The PEPFAR has a specific provision.
Is that the 1/3 abstinence only argument?
Yeah, it's just an it's basically just an implication of your first card under the AIDS advantage.
Okay.
Because if they fund or send any type of condoms, PEPFAR loses all of its funding, which means in the world of the solvency arguments, which say that condoms will be used, individuals have no mechanism for AIDS treatment now.
Okay, so Ugandan men are hostile to condoms, right? Yep. Why?
Because they don't want to talk about family planning issues because sons as well as children are seen as a symbol of power in the region.
That's cool. I get that. I'm more asking about the functional argument. I get that they don't want to talk about family planning programs, but I want to know where the internal link is between not wanting to talk about family planning programs and wanting to put a condom on.
Well, if clearly individuals don't even want to talk about it, what makes you think that they would actually want to engage in it?
Okay.
This card is very specific in saying when the word sex is mentioned
Okay.
or any type of discourse, they freak out.
What's this U.S. only uses U.S. condoms argument? Like, what's the impact of that?
Right, the impact to that.
Okay.
This card indicates that when we only use the type of U.S. condoms, that they're not going to be as good as other condoms could be. Additionally, because of the limited quantity that are produced in the United States, because of U.S. abstinence policies domestically, there will be a shortage of condoms
Because
that
of
will
U.S.
actually.
policies domestically?
Yes.
Okay, all right, awesome. If I could get the counterclaim and solvency arguments on my affirmative action.
Sure.
I'll take some prep. I'll start